Alright folks, it's a beautiful day out here, and I wanted to talk to you about the tools you may need to cut drywall. A couple of things that I really like to use when I cut drywall. The first thing we're going to need is a good pencil. Now a lot of people just use regular pencils, but I like this one right here. This is a red one. No, it's not erasable, but the cool part about it is it's red and I can see it very easily. The other thing we're going to need is something to cut it with. Now drywall, when we're cutting big pieces, we use a utility knife to do that. Now when you buy one of these, they give you a couple of blades to start with. The problem with the blades that they give you to start with is that they're really not meant for cutting drywall. They're just basic blades. So what I recommend is that you pick up a pack of drywall blades, and they're usually located right next to the knives in the same section of the store. It's only about $1.50, maybe $2.50 to pick up a pack of blades for drywall purposes, but please use those when you're cutting drywall. It's going to make it a lot easier. These blades are sharper and tougher to cut through the gypsum that's in the drywall. The other thing we're going to need is a tape measure. Tape measure, this one is one that I picked up at Home Depot. It's really nice because the numbers on it are really big. You see that? And then if we zoom in and we look at the fractions, like 1/2, 3/8, 5/8, they're all written out and you can see that. You don't have to look at the marks and add hash marks on the tape measure to determine how big you're measuring out. The other thing that I need to cut drywall is the T-square here, or a carpenter square as some may call it. Now this right here is really important because it always gives you a perfect right angle. And this is a pretty heavy piece of equipment here. It's made of thick steel, so it'll give you a really precise edge and a really precise cut. And we use this for creating a straight line. Okay, to measure drywall, what we're going to do is we're going to take our tape measure here. We're going to hook it on the end of the piece of drywall. And we're going to bring it out. Okay. So we bring it out, and then let's say we need a 33-inch length. So we're going to go over to 33 inches right here, and I've already made a mark, as you can see, but we're going to go on to 33. Going to make a mark right at 33. Okay, and then we're going to repeat that process. We're going to move the tape measure up here. We'll make another mark right here on 33 inches. Okay. Now that we have at least a couple of marks at 33 inches across our piece of drywall, the next thing we're going to do, take our T-square and we're going to line it up. We're going to line it up with all of the red marks we just made. And we're also going to make sure that it aligns flush with the edge, the straight edge, if we have one on our piece of drywall. That way we know we're making a straight line. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our pencil. While holding this in place, we're going to take our pencil and we're going to create a straight line this way, all the way down. Alright, so now that we've created a straight line all the way down our piece of drywall, we're going to take our utility knife with the drywall blade installed and we're going to score along that line. So to do that, we put our drywall knife right on the line and we run it all the way down, pressing in just gently. And we try to stay along the line. Now we're going to do that 2 or 3 times so that we score it such that when we bend it backwards in a moment, it's going to break along that line. Alright, so we've scored along our red line here, and now we're ready to bend the drywall piece along that line backwards. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of drywall, stand it up on its side like that, move it out of the way, and then we're going to gently bend it backwards like that. See how gently that was? I didn't force anything. I used one hand to do it. So you can use 2 hands, whatever you like, but don't force it, because if you do, you're going to break it in the wrong place and it's going to create a crooked line that you're going to have to mud around, or worse yet, it may not be wide enough for what you're trying to do. In that case, you'll have to go buy another piece of drywall. The other thing to note, this is 1/2 inch drywall here. 5/8 drywall is going to be a little bit harder to bend like that. So you're going to want to score it more so that it bends and breaks easily. Okay guys, this is my test wall here. What we have here is a test wall framed out much like a regular wall would be, but only scaled down for the purpose of demonstration. So now that we have our piece of drywall that we're going to attach to this wall, what we're going to do is we're going to lean it up against the wall, make sure that it lines up correctly, and then also we're going to make sure that we get a couple of screws in the studs. So what we want to do is we want to have at least one screw in each of these 3 studs here. 1, 2, and 3. These are called studs right there. And then you've got a base plate for your wall. This runs along your floor. And then up here, this is going to be your top plate. This is going to run along the top. Just a standard wall. Your wall may be a little bit different, but most of the same principles still apply. So the type of screws we're going to use these standard drywall screws here, 1 5/8 8-gauge screw. Again, a box of these is about $5, $6, $7 at Home Depot. Nothing big. You can use a drywall screwdriver. I have just a standard cordless drill here. I like the rigid drills because they run off lithium-ion batteries. They're pretty easy to find replacement parts for, and they just work. So I'm going to use my drill. And then what I'm going to do here is grab a screw, and I'm going to find where the stud is, and I'm going to come in, I don't know, about 1/2, 3/4 of an inch in, because if I go here with the screw, I'm just going to break off a little piece of this gypsum here. I want to come in a little bit so that there's enough gypsum around this to support that screw. We want a good tight fit. Okay, so now that I've got the screw started, all I'm going to do is really gently drive the screw in. And what I want to do when I gently drive the screw in is to get the screw head just below the surface of this paper. Not all the way in, not too tight, just below the surface of this. The reason I want to do that is because when I bring the mud around to mud, I want to just go over the top of the screw. Okay, so now that screw is installed. So again, I want to make sure that there's just a little bit below, the head is just a little bit below the surface of the drywall. There's a little bit of an indentation here. And the reason I want that is because when I put the mud in, I want the mud to cover up that screw completely. I don't want to go too tight because I'll just go through the drywall and then I've got a hole I've got to patch with no screw in it. So I don't want that. The key is to not go too fast with the drill and not go too slow with the drill. Okay, so here's our first drywall panel installed. You'll notice I have 2 screws spaced about 1 foot apart per stud. That's really what you want to see. 1 foot to 18 inches is what I always do. I don't know if there's really a standard for it, but I've hung quite a bit of drywall, and it's usually 12 to 18 inches apart per screw, all the way up each of the studs. Okay, so now we have our test wall, and we have our studs. They're already framed out with 16 inches on center here, and there's 3 of them. And then we have some pieces of drywall attached to the wall. Now, normally in your rental, what you're going to have is 4 by 8 sheets of drywall, or something as close to 4 foot by 8 foot. That would be 8 foot wide by 4 foot tall, hung on the studs. This is a very scaled down version of what you would see in your house or your rental property, wherever that may be. By now your drywall is attached to the studs. In the next video we'll take a look at mudding.